Good morning. Welcome to our Advent reflection. I'm G, a Vietnamese passionist in Holy Cross. And be with me today, we have Father Erick and Mr. Taylor. Now, I would like to invite each one of you to speak something about yourself, your name, what sort of job you have, and where you live, and something like that, etc.
Thank you, Tree. My name is Shane. I live in Port Melbourne. I'm lucky to work in a Catholic girls' school here in Melbourne, 1,200 girls. And my parish or my connection is St Francis in the city. I'm a teacher of religion. I've taught music in the past, and I can teach food technology.
Thank you, Shane. Eric, and I'm a passionist here at Holy Cross in Melbourne, and at the moment I am assisting with formation, so that is accompanying young men who are studying to be passionists, and at the same time here I am doing some further studies at Holy Cross.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Jane. First, I have to thank you for accepting my invitation to come here to share with me my reflection. And we are gathering here to reflect on the suffering of the world. Then the topic for us today is where can we find hope, peace, and joy in the midst of the suffering, and what sort of activities we can do to bring hope for people. Now I would like to ask each one of you to share your story where maybe in some case you haven't found hope or you haven't found love, and how can you deal with that problem. Eric, would you love to go first?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I guess for me, the hardest time I've ever had, if I had to choose one, is to experience war. And some people know already, but those who don't know, when I was 5, there was a war in my country. And I remember very well how when we were in a house and people came to kill us, and then all of a sudden my dad went to face them, and we had to run with mom through the back door. That was the last of seeing dad for a long time. The hardest part there was not knowing what will happen to us, what will happen to dad, what's going to happen to our home. And even later in a camp, thank God we survived. But in a camp also people were dying because of not enough medicines, also because of still a lot of anger of losing their loved ones. They still fought, or a lot of mental health issues. And so even in the camp, really there weren't a lot of hope. After about 12 years or even 10 years in the camp, you start wondering, and I remember very well wondering if we are really going to make it out of the camp, or if we'll just stay there and stay there forever, or die there like the others die because there is not enough medicine, or because of the violence. So the hardest part for me was a constant struggle of not knowing that there is safety for me or for my family, and there is no future. So so that wasn't just me, but was the family and other people around us, who it was very reflected whenever there was a challenge. I have mentioned before how one of our neighbors, because he was handicapped and he lost his leg, and his arm didn't work so well, so his leg had to be cut off. He had two girls, and he couldn't provide for the family, so he was so depressed that he burnt the house, and also before burning the house, he'd tied down his girls and also hanged himself. So that's horrible. That's giving up. What do people think? What would we think when we heard things like that? There's a temptation that it's easy to go. It's very easy to give up. Then maybe you won't have to worry anymore. You won't have to worry about the future of your children or the future of your family or the safety, because such things would happen in a similar way, or other people would just fight to death. So I think the question about where is hope, where do you find hope, love, and joy? For us, the first hope for us was God. There is no hope that can be better than that faith that we had. Of course, there was struggle about faith, but because we'd come to pray and our prayers were real, and there were tears in prayers sometimes. I remember personally as a little praying for us to find Dad, because we really needed Dad to come and help Mom. And those prayers will feel emotional. So I remember also some of the people preaching, some of the priests preaching, saying, especially on the resurrection, they gave us hope. So knowing that, for us, knowing that there is a better life after, that gave us a lot of hope that it's worth trying to live as best as we could in this life until the end, even though it's difficult. That's the most helpful thing. The other one that gave us hope, of course, was the people that loved us, or our family, and those that didn't even know us, that came to look after us, to give us some food, to help us with clothing and safety as well. And that's what gave us hope. So there are people that will come and teach us some songs and things like that. I remember at school, they will come as missionaries. You hear people going at school also. It will be the most memorable and happy time, and would prepare, would do some dancing so we can dance for them to thank them, and they will play with us. It will be, it would really lift our hearts up knowing that someone actually truly cares about us and our education. And these people didn't really have a lot of things now looking back. It's not like they were really, really rich, but they had something to give to us that was not just material, but something you couldn't buy, something that was made us feel that they care and we matter. So that's the greatest gift. That's one of the greatest gifts, I think, that's not unrelated to God and faith. I think that's related, and I believe God works through people. And we saw it that way. We thank God, we praise God, we say thank you for sending these people. Thank you for working through them. And so eventually coming to Australia, Australia also became like one of those people or individuals. As a country that adopted us, that said, yes, we can take you as refugees. And without having to explain everything again, you can tell how much that meant to us to find safety, refuge, to find dignity and freedom again, and to also find Dad afterwards, after 14 years of
14.
separation, we reunited with our dad through Red Cross. But that happened because we came to Australia. Now, there are many others who have different stories where it's always been dark and not much hope. They have their own stories. For us, I think we believe that we are not just lucky, but we are blessed to have this, and because we're so blessed to have this, then we have the call and the responsibility to help others bring joy in their lives by our presence and with whatever we can do.
It was hard for you. And can you tell me a little bit more about how you find your dad? And was it look like a miracle for you? Because 14 years is a long time, and for me, if in that case, I may thought that my father died already. But
Yes, we had a feeling that Dad was still alive because they never found his body, and if they found the body, they would let us know. And the people still in Africa still looked for him in Burundi, in my country, but so we thought he's somewhere. So how do we find him? When we came to Australia in Adelaide as refugees, we found one person from Rwanda. So Rwanda is another country that had a lot of war, like Burundi, the civil war. So he found his brother through Red Cross, and he said all he did was to call Red Cross and tell them what happened, so they could announce on the radio in our countries where surrounding Burundi, and that's what we did. My mother was sure that if my father is anywhere, he is in Tanzania, where because of the connections we had there before the war, and even after the war, we still had connections there. So our father, yes, when they announced on the radio, our father was found, and I'm trying to think how to put this. My father would be happy to even say this to Tanzania, that he was an illegal immigrant. But that's also because he tried to look for us in camps and didn't find us, and where he went, he was not safe. As many people know, it was not safe for many people in the camps, where if you went and they were the opposite ethnic group, where our camp was a mixture, and my father, people still looked for him. So he found refuge in Tanzania somewhere and learned how to live as an illegal immigrant. So he took the risk when he heard about the announcement. And that's how we found him. He rang the number and they connected us, and we talked for a long time at that night.
it should be happiest day for yourself and for your family. And I think that
Yes.
the hope still maintained there, even they cannot hear any news about your dad, and they cannot find you cannot find the body of your dad. So they may think that the dad died already, but still the hope maintained there.
Yes. We of course we tried, and we believed that he'll be in a better place. But finding him was a very joyful day, and I always say this: that night we spoke until there was not enough credit in it. Phone was finished. But before that was a good 3 to 4 hours, I don't know how long, for everyone talking. And I remember well when he finished talking to mom, well, my mom, and then mom handed to me and I spoke, and my voice was deeper than this then. I was 19, so I spoke, Papa, Amakuru, and that means Dad, how are you? And then he didn't speak back to me. He spoke to mom. He said, Rosa is my mom, Rosa in my language. Uwo mugabo ninde ari mu rugo rwanje? And that means, who is that man in my house?
Of course. It's 14 years, that's understandable.
Yes. So it was but that being dad was also his sense of humor. Right at the moment we were talking, it was his sense of humor that we remember so well. He knew it was one of his sons, but so
to lighten that moment.
Yes, so it was beautiful, and that's just one bit of what happened. So we're very grateful, really, that it is. I will never underestimate how precious it is to be available for someone when they're in a deeper struggle, and to accept help as well when we're in struggle. I will never underestimate, because that can change people's lives. Not just give them safety, but give them faith and belief that they're important, they're dignified, that they're not, that they also deserve to be treated equally as human beings. Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. That's such a beautiful story. In the midst of the suffering, and it just looked like hopeless for you. You still maintain the hope, and finally you find happiness.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing for us to reflect on your story, to learn something from your story. What about you, Shane? You have some moment that you found hopeless?
I think my story is nothing like Erick's, but thank you, Erick, for sharing such a deeply personal and moving experience of God as we move through life. My journey is probably a little bit different. I suppose sometimes the struggle is internal.
Yeah.
And it often can be our personalities, in my case. Sometimes I like to let God be second place and I become first place. And I think that's when things go wrong, is when we take control. We need to, in my case, I need to not control what's happening, but allow God to speak to me through others. One of the joys I have is working with young people. And for them, church, unfortunately, is not the church that I grew up in. They're not at Mass on Sunday. They're not part of the parish networks. Schools, for them, is church. And so the joy in that is trying to explore hope. And young people are very honest. They'll tell you exactly what they think.
Yes.
They expect you to be true to who you are. But they also have great ideals, and their hopes can be very profound and challenge us. So when I say it's a joy because I'm made accountable. Not technically, but through their actions, through their relationships. So I had some conversations last week with some students, a couple of different groups. I challenged them. I said, so what's this Advent time for you? And I got the answers, the 3 purple candles, 1 pink candle. They listed the themes of Advent, which was all good. That's all the head stuff, and that's part of our tradition. But I said, what's deeper for you in Advent? What's this period of time mean for you? And I got some very beautiful responses. Some students spoke about it's time now to reconnect distances with families and experiences that they haven't been able to do due to COVID or lockdowns. It was a time for that. Other students spoke about it's a time to reflect on their responsibility. They say that they are privileged and they acknowledge that, and that privilege comes with the responsibility. So they spoke about works of prayer, of advocacy, of supporting others in need and trying to work out what they can do. And that was very profound. That came from Year 8 students, so they're about 13. For them to name those sorts of things gave me great hope in what our world is and where God is acting in our world. So I think they're experiences of hope for us, and they're hope for me when I try to let God be second place instead of first place.
That's a good thing. Always lovely to hear from the students something like that, because they are young and they have a pure heart. They can speak from what they really feel. Yeah. And especially in the future, they want to live, not us.
That's right.
So thank you for your personal story. So maybe we can start to think of the suffering of the world today, where so many people still suffer. The war like the Ukraine, or someone still suffering the flood in New South Wales or in Vietnam last time. We all now still are afflicted. How can we have people to fight?
I asked this question again to
Yeah.
some Year 9s, so they're about 14 or 15. And I said, given the natural disasters that are happening here in Australia and overseas, given the places of war, what does that do to you? And their response again was very profound. It was that we have a responsibility to find the goodness of humanity and to celebrate that. We need to find the care for one another. A student said, I may not be able to fly to the Ukraine and solve the problems of war there, but I can work with the people around me and treat them with dignity and them respect. I can listen to other opinions. So I think, again, those voices are very profound in challenging me personally, but all of us on what we're able to do.
That's a
That's
beautiful
the
thing.
hope.
Yeah, that comes from the mind of the young people, not us. What about you, Eric? Because you have experience of the war, and for the war in Ukraine, maybe touching you so much. What do you think?
Yes, I think like Shen just said, doing what we can where we are with our abilities, using our abilities where we are, not wanting to see what's happening there that we can't do much for. I think I'm touched by that. I feel like I wouldn't want anyone in their own countries to start something that's happening in my country if there is a war, because what happens in my country is diminishing and it doesn't end anywhere. The second thing is similar as well, and I think Shen also sort of would agree from what he's saying, is that that in our abilities, I guess if we really could help, we would help, wouldn't we? I feel that I was helped by Australia, and I don't understand politics enough to know how much Australia can help. But I do understand that Australia has already done some helping. What can I do? I think what can we do as a community is to find ways that as people, what can we do? Prayers, we pray every day, and that's very helpful. And worrying about it won't really do anything, but what can we do is a good question. I think our nations, I think supporting the nations' desire to help, and saying that yes, we do support that our taxes should go through that, should support bringing peace in whatever possible way. Um, and I think sometimes sometimes we people can be quite evil for some reason, from my experience. And I don't know if that's anyone's fault. I don't know. But I also believe that that can be stopped ethically. I think that can be stopped when a lot of people who are innocent are suffering. And I think if we have the power to do big things, then let's use it to do good things. Now, I think what I'm trying to say is, let's encourage our nations and other nations to step in and not hold back from helping other nations. As a globe, we are all one. And if we're a family, I'm sure each family would really want their family members to be better and to take a step to try and help if the help is welcome.
Thank you. And I have heard that you say that when you was at the time, you were helped by many people that come and teach you singing and they care for you. Do you think that is the hand of God that come to you? You know, it just look like that people, God incarnate in those people, and then by those people, God come to help you.
Yes, I think it's how people interpret things. I believe back then, where my faith is, I would say, yes, of course, that's God. And that's what we'll say, thank you, God, for sending these people. And now, I still believe that anything good, whether it be religious or not, anything that's life-giving, anything that's supportive, anything that's really loving selflessly, that's the Spirit of God. That's from the essence of what God dreams for people and us, and what God made us to be, so together and you know, support each other. So yes, and however people will interpret it, I have a sense that everyone does want good things to happen, and that if we all agree on that, whether we interpret it as a good thing or not, then then if we all agree it's a good thing, then why not do it? Why not take the time out of our own times to do something? Yes, and I was inspired by Beck Mitchell, who has started 10 years ago next year, a small group of runners. What all they do is to come and run, and they pay money to run, and not only are they looking after the mental health, some people walk it, but they also raise that money goes to the funds of helping young girls who have mental health illness and may not be able to afford their support. And as you know, I joined that marathon, and I was very overwhelmed by the amount of people that were there. And I think when we help, it's a twofold thing. We think that we are just helping other people, but the overwhelming experience and what it does to us too, it makes us feel happy, true happiness. And I think that's because we are connected. That if St. Paul refers to people of God as a body, and I think if my hand is happy, then I am happy.
Mm.
And as much as we can work towards feeling that if our friends, our people are happy, then we'll be happy, then that will be working towards more peace and joy.
Eric, as you were speaking, I was thinking of the wisdom of our tradition, which talks about God's kingdom and how we are called through baptism to be co-creators of God's kingdom with God. And when you're speaking about the joy of sharing, but also the joy we receive, the help of others, the face of God, as Tree was saying, in our tradition we see that as building God's kingdom, which I think is a very beautiful image. And I was thinking before when you were speaking about the challenges of war, this is not the young people's words, this is me putting words about what they shared with me. But it's the dehumanization of the other. When we forget that we don't allow the dignity of other humans, that we can allow such horrors to occur. I think I haven't walked in your shoes. I've only read history and what media tells us about the horrors of war, but when we allow another human person to be less than human, then those sadness can occur. And I think of our young people, they can be disturbed, they can be very black and white, there's no grey. This is right, this is wrong. And they can see that in the struggles of war, but they also see it amongst themselves. The challenges of social media for young people, when one person might be hurt by another. And again, them being able to say, well, where's the dignity of that person in that process? And I think that's our challenge, to name the human dignity, God's grace, that allows us then those moments.
I couldn't agree more.
That's very nice, Eric and Jim, and especially Eric when he said that he used his ability, he used what he interesting for to be able to help people by just little thing. And that is, for me, that is the message of the event. We are not here to wait for the Christmas, but we wait for the coming of Jesus in our life, and Jesus is incarnate in our life each day, and that is by the way we do our ability, we use our ability to help people. That is God is doing in us. That's what I think. And by the way, we can carry hope and love for people.
Yes, definitely.
Very much so.
So thank you very much for coming today, for sharing your story, and for giving me so much experience that I never had, and that is so beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tree. Thank you, Eric, for sharing as we journey along this Advent tradition. Wonderful time. Thank you.
Tree.
Thank you very much.
Shane.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done.